Oh man, great conversations, great times. What is going on, everybody? If you don't know, now you do know. You're officially tuned in to a special edition of the HFWB podcast series. This is your host, Clifton Pope. And before I get into the person who I'm about to bring on today, couple of things here. We're all trying to feel great for the long haul, always, every single day, which is why you need to go visit goandfeelgreat.com to learn how you can feel great for the long haul. And of course, tap into yourself from within to not only combat but end insulin resistance. Go visit goandfeelgreat.com and also go ahead and unlock the secrets to overall human performance, which we're going to get into a lot in this particular episode. But if you want more additional resources, visit athleticism.com as well, all of which will be in my show notes and all that wonderful stuff. But I must say, the person who I'm about to bring on to the HFWB podcast series, I'm grateful for who I'm connected to within this community that I live in here in Corpus Christi, Texas, for those listening all across the world, because it pays off on who you know, and it pays off on aligning yourself with like-minded individuals who know just how to use their voice and back their voice up with actions in order to get things done and to get things moving and shaking and literally transform the community to a whole nother level. And honestly, the person who I'm about to bring on, let's just say she's consistently worked that and is still doing that to this very day as a public voice, so to speak, to basically increase the quality of life, increase the quality of health and overall wellness within her community. I mean, she's a well-respected speaker. If you haven't heard about her speaking, shame on you, because you should. And on top of that, she's a local food advocate. And I'm going to tell you why she's a local food advocate, because a lot of people don't know this. She's the founder of Grow Local South Texas. Just if you're familiar with that here in the Corpus Christi, Texas area, the person who I'm about to bring on started that and found that. I mean, when it comes to just overall supporting your local farmers, she's literally the definition of that, with her work just being a regenerative farmer to begin with, a garden healer. I mean, she's a social entrepreneur. She's also a TEDx talk speaker. She's done two of those. Definitely look them up on YouTube. You won't be disappointed on that. But on top of that, she's also a lifestyle coach. But most importantly, my favorite thing that she is what she would call herself, a chief inspiration officer. Get what I said there? Chief inspiration officer of Freedom Harvest Farms. I've been looking forward to this particular episode for quite some time. With that being said, I would like to welcome the one, the only Miss Aislynn J. Campbell to the HFWB podcast series. Aislynn, how are you doing on this Feel Good Friday?
Hello, I'm very well. I'm very well. My father and I spent time together this morning harvesting. Well, we harvested on 4th of July the Spanish Lenoir grapes. These have been in the ground, or we've been working on these types of projects since about 2013, I want to say. And then today we spent time crushing the grapes and getting them ready to go into the fermentation process. So you might think the grapes and the wine were the best part of the morning, but honestly, the best part of the morning, I'm gonna choke up a little bit, but the best part of the morning was spending time with my father, and doing a project that he's really into and he really loves and he's very proud of, and is a creative thing that he does that is associated really closely with the things that I do as well. So yeah,
It just all kind of ties in together with your overall story, because a lot of people don't know like how far like you go back as far as like growing food on that family land, spending time with your family in those like community gardens, your own backyard, for instance. I remember when I first went to your farm, like back in last December, you were telling me about how it expanded like for over 3 decades and stuff. And it just, over time, that you like used it as an opportunity to develop like your own hands-on expertise, developing all these wonderful plants that you harvest in this 100% organic gardens, which is very rare here in South Texas, which most people don't even realize. But before we get into all of that, Aislynn, I want to let us to backtrack a little bit as far as like your overall background, your overall upbringing. What made you the overall spiritual person, and at the same time just In a way, a social butterfly, but at the same time, a mover, a shaker, a go-getter, and someone who's going to get something done based off of what they're passionate about and what they believe in. How did it come to all of this, and what sparked all of this to start things off?
My children sparked it. My son was born premature. He's 20. He's going to be 25 this September. And truth be told, he sparked it. But it came with a lot of, I was called to this.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I can explain it is just that this was the purpose that Aislynn is doing on this planet in this lifetime. And the thing is that my family has always lived rurally. My family has always been the type of people that were resourceful and making our own way and solving our own problems. We were always involved in livestock 4-H. I came from cotton farmers and rodeos. They did rodeo. I mean, so it was in my historical coding. It was in my historical upbringing.
It was in your DNA from the get-go.
That's right. But then in addition to the other things, because even the way you described me, and I know a lot of people don't believe in this, but part of the reason people don't believe in it is because they don't know it. They don't understand it the way people that believe in it is. And that is my star sign is Sagittarius. My moon sign is Aquarius, and my rising sign is Capricorn. And if you look into that or you know anything about it, then you would understand the way you described me is exactly what God put me here for with those 3 star signs, but it took me a really long time to figure some of that stuff out. And so, the stuff that happened with my child and having a child young, I also had a really severe lawnmower accident when I was 13. So I had post-traumatic stress disorder. I'd been in and out of the hospitals so many times in my life. I now know that I dealt with a lot of autoimmune disorder type symptoms and things like that because of the start of the antibiotics that were given to me, but then also just the lifestyle and things that we as Americans started doing in the 90s, which is when I grew up, the way we ate and, things like that. Right. And so one of the first experiences I had where I was losing control of my health was, of course, you go off to college, mom's not feeding you anymore. You're drinking probably yourself. You're not, but you likely are. You're staying up too late. You're not eating good food, all those types of things, and started having a lot of ulcerated colitis. Ulcers. And the thing that was special about me, not that I'm special, but the thing that was different about me than the average 19-year-old is that because I'd had so much experience with the physical body, having had such an accident at such a young age, and because I'd had so much experience with the cost of healthcare, health insurance, dealing with hospitals, dealing with all of that stuff, when they said to me, "Oh, we need to do a gastro thing where we're going to go down your throat, check your stomach, see what's going on. Also, here's some Prilosec. You need to take this." And I'm like, okay, so how often, how long? They're like, "Oh, you're probably going to have to take this for your rest of your life." And a light bulb went off for me. And this was so I was 19. So this was even before Cortland was born. And it was just enough of a tiny little bit of light bulb that I went, no, wait, hold on. Surely I can do something different. And then I had a premature birth. So that's another sign of autoimmune disorders and generally immune system issues. The way mine went down anyways, the particular situation that caused my premature birth to happen. And so I think the ball just started rolling back then. And like anybody else, I go in and out of success with all kinds of things. I'm a human in the consciousness of the I am. That's my spiritual belief. I'm a human living, and I can't disconnect myself from the reality of what it feels like to actually have a body and to know if I walk out in front of an 18-wheeler, I'm going to get, I'm going to be done. So my body is real and I have to manage that. But these little sparks of information that we receive that are from something greater than us means that I had to learn little things that would just keep me leveling up. And for me, it's always come through embodiment, physical manifestations in my own body, which taught me, and what I try to teach other people is that if you feel sick, you have a practical problem that you need to solve. That is the truth, because this is life and there is reality here on this planet in this lifetime. But two, you have deeper traumatic, historical, DNA, whatever. You've got deeper wounding that needs to heal. And there was just something about me that I got put on this planet to help with embodiment of knowledge of healing and knowledge of dealing with trauma and some of that stuff. And that's where I am today. You know what I mean? Like, it's been like a progression of all this stuff and all that other stuff that happened, the practical applications of that, like learning to garden, teaching my kids to garden, learning how to cook, caring about small scale agriculture, trying to step out of the traditional system of the political blah, blah, blah stuff that was all happening. All of that stuff was just my practical application of how to apply it to my life. I didn't even actually know I was about to go through these really massive spiritual awakenings that were connected to that same embodiment, physical, like in my body, I can feel it. And the way I feel about my body is that my body is a communication device. And I think that's what all of the masters were trying to teach us, including Jesus. My body is a physical communication device. This earth is a physical communication device. And within these things, we can then learn how to evolve as these spiritual conscious beings. And so I just had that connection. And I think that lawnmower accident, I think that, all those things aligned with me needing to have this information at this age in humanity.
And it's funny because you mentioned that in particular with your TED Talk, as far as, trying to find your sanctuary. And I kind of like was segued into the next question I was going to actually ask you, Aislynn, as far as like, what in that particular moment, do you feel like it kind of laid down the foundation to where it was like, okay, I was put on this purpose as far as just to, discover not only healing within myself, but showing others how to do the same based off of everything that you went through. It's kind of like, it's like a gift and a curse kind of thing, because you have to go through certain curses in order to be able to understand the true gifts that you have within yourself, on top of the skills and talents that the higher powers blessed you with from the get-go, as far as just that what makes you your own unique person. It's like the power of manifestation, just beginning with the end in mind. I feel like, could you elaborate that on a little bit more, Aislynn, on how you feel like the power of manifestation really propelled you on the journey that you're currently on within this healing process?
I think that, well, for one thing, I think that in the recent years, I've begun to discover it's not magical woo-woo. It's actually science. And part of that, like talking about the astrology and things like that, it's kind of the same thing. But I had to learn that stuff by watching it occur on the earth. So the more grounded I became, the better I had the capacity to actually embody the knowledge that was being offered to me about what does that actually mean. So my knowing is I am all of that, and everything that ever existed is the I am. Everything that ever existed is the I am. And who I am, Aislynn, is a human being on a life trip. This is a lifetime, and I'm doing this thing, and right. And that's it. And we all come from like all these different, and we have closer bubbles that are closer to each other and all of that kind of stuff. And so in this lifetime, in this physical dimension, that's what we're in. We're in a physical dimension. In this physical dimension that is polarity, I had to begin to understand that every single thing that my mind thought created the world for me. So your world, even as close as we are, Clifton, living in Corpus Christi, knowing each other, your worldview is 100% different than me. And if you imagine 8 billion people on the planet today, plus all the ones that existed before that created the earth that we live on today, all that brain power is how we got to where we are right now. And it's almost like the Truman Show type of thing. Like, I'm literally living, and it's hard to understand that stuff. I mean, I can't even really explain it to somebody until they begin to embody it and understand. So all that stuff that's going on out there, I begin to understand. I'm making it happen. So then what happens next is I begin to have the observation. I have to step back from it and say, that's not who I am. That's just the experience that Aislynn on her life trip is having. So instead of judging it, because Aislynn's mind is not it is not possible for Aislynn's mind to judge 8 billion worldviews plus all the ones that existed before that. It's impossible. So all I can do is observe what's occurring. And then here's the really important part: grace and forgiveness for when I act like a human, and I act in fear, and I act with shame, and I act with, all of the experience, the things that the world has taught me that I need to purchase to save myself, or the things I need to do to save myself, so it becomes a physical manifestation in my world around me. And, Clifton, these are some of these things. It doesn't matter how much I talk to people about it until they're ready to embody it and get it, and even sit in the void of quiet meditation and practice of non-judgmental observation. They won't get it, and they won't even understand what I'm talking about. But the fun thing about books and speakers and words and masters and all these things is that information will come to us when we're ready to receive it. So we might be sitting back over and over and over again to receive it, so that we can then begin to understand how to manifest in this lifetime the things that we prefer. Our preferences is all we're doing. We're not judging good versus bad. The least I spend time saying this is good and this is bad, the better off I am at aligning and harmoniously attuning with the I am as to what my personal preference is and what it is my purpose is supposed to be doing in this trip.
I love that. It's just having like a very open-minded perspective, so to speak, because you got to take the good with the bad, and you got to understand, you got to look at it from a law of polarity, because it's like you can't have one without the other. And at the end of the day, Aislynn, to kind of tie all of this together, it's like, regardless of how far we may be from one another, so to speak, from the universal standpoint, we're all connected at the end of the day, because we're tuning into that same energy force. We're tuning into that same frequency, that same vibration that we're receiving on a regular basis from the universe. The moment we ground ourselves within Mother Earth, it's like a signal being sent from the universe down to the earth. The moment we ground ourselves and we remove ourselves from our thoughts, our emotions, our ego, and we're just in tune with just like the power of that spiritual consciousness levels. It's like, it's groundbreaking on what you can do as far as just telling yourself, as far as I am this or I am that. It's like reassuring yourself that, but at the same time, just creating something based off of what you see from within. And it's like, I feel like everything you just painted, Aislynn, kind of feeds in pretty much to what you're all about. And one thing I get from you off the top, even when we first met about 6 months ago, originally at your farm, you really treat it like if it's your own sanctuary, your sense of peace and your sense of comfort. It's what feeds your mind and your body and your spirit. Like, I remember just walking on the farm with you, Aislynn, and you had like the biggest smile in the world, like a kid at the candy shop, the moment you were just giving me that tour of your farm. And I sensed it from within, to where it's like, it left me within like a humbling experience within myself. And it reminded me the importance of just thinking of a space to where it kind of helps create like an awakening within yourself. It's like, is that what you kind of planned on doing as far as whenever you were building up Freedom Harvest Farms, and when you were doing the work within the regenerative farming space, the garden healing space, and just really showing how that alone could help heal you from within, but at the same time develop a better productive lifestyle out of it?
I think that I started in a bit more what people would consider a bit more practical space. Like, it was about in a space that was a little bit more, and I tend to, and I swoop back over there often, and that is a little bit more aggressive on the prepper side of things. I think that's probably where it really, like, first of all, we wanted to be outside of places where we could take care of ourselves, and that we didn't fall what I would call victim, although I'm not willing to be a victim, but we didn't fall victim to all of the crazy regulations that make no sense, which I had gone through the whole advocacy of your land and urban spaces and fought for backyard gardens and backyard chickens and, all that kind of stuff. And I had just gotten fed up with the idea, even after running for mayor, I had gotten fed up with the idea that stuff just wasn't working. And so there's an element of, the truth is like, I knew I wanted to do education. I knew that there weren't things here available for my family. I knew we needed to eat better food. So it was all very practical.
Yeah.
But then as I got out here and then went through some really challenging years right after I moved back out here, because I moved. So my family has been rural, but we haven't always had this piece of land. Right. We had this piece of land since about 2010. I lived out here, and then I moved into town, and then I moved back out here in 2021. And over those years, some big, massive changes happened in my life. And that's where I suddenly began to understand that what I was and what the farm was more of a lighthouse for people that were being called to this awakening, to this healing, to this shift in mindset, but also shift in body wellness and getting outside and getting fresh air and sunshine and enjoying the rain and all that. And so, and where what you're talking about came from was when I was in my hardest, trying to figure out how to solve the problems that were going on in my family, my close family, and my brain, and all of the things, and my health, and all of that kind of stuff. I started opening the farm up every Monday morning, and I would call it like garden healing. And I would always invite, there would be lots of moms with kids, and I was consistent, whether anybody showed up or not. I always just kept saying, so this has been a few years ago now. I just kept saying, on Mondays, the farm is open. On Mondays, the farm is open. And then after a while, just kind of more people started showing up, So the idea that I live too far away from town, nobody's going to like where you're at. Nobody's going to want to drive over there. All of that just started to dissipate, because what I had become was attractive to people that were inspired to live this kind of life. And it started with moms and their kids. And it started with the millennials, that had finally started having the kids, getting married, doing all that stuff, and they were like very excited to start coming out. And so I think that inspiration in my own life, came from just a commitment to, and I always say a commitment to God. I consider God all of the things we've talked about today. Yeah. Like a prayer and a commitment to, I'm going to do this thing. I have no idea how it's going to work out. I don't know if my business is ever going to be successful out here on the farm. And that's how I've gone about my faith through this entire thing. I have believed that I'm on the right path and that God's sending me the right way. And so that, I think, in answer to the harder question, or the question you initially asked, like, where did that like inspiration and how did you, what was the initial draw to doing that? It just, like anything else that has happened in my life, I planted seeds and they grew, and then I was like, oh, this is what we are.
And that's not pun intendedly, by the way, even though you are known as a very outstanding farmer, that wasn't pun intended, because you literally planted the seeds, and ironically enough, you grew like your own empire that's still growing to this day with Freedom Harvest Farms. And for those who are listening to this particular episode of the HFWB podcast series and have never heard of Freedom Harvest Farms, how would you best describe it to those who are listening, and what can they get out of it the moment they go out there and visit the farm itself? Because I can tell you from my personal experience, for those listening in particular, and if you haven't visited, it's one of the most humbling experiences ever. It reminds you of the importance of supporting our local farmers, because with everything that's going on with our food and stuff and how contaminated it's getting on a regular basis. We need to learn how to take care of ourselves, and we need to learn how to basically grow our own food. That way we can survive in the times that we live in 2024 and beyond. So what would you say for anyone who goes out and visits that farm, Aislynn? What would be the picture you would paint for them?
I think Freedom Harvest is a very good way to just start, because what our intentions were when we first got this piece of land was to harvest our own freedom. And now I understand that freedom is an internal thing rather than like a freedom from regulations or a freedom from, and I guess that's probably the best way
it's deeper than that. You realized how deep it got. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that the and I hear it a lot, the peace people feel, the relief people feel, and it doesn't have anything to do with me or what I do or teaching people to grow food, or it's about the nature of the land. And the thing is that I create regenerative ecosystems while I produce annual production food. Okay. So that means I don't kill anything. If I have to kill something, it is so focused, so deal with one thing I need to deal with, and then even that, every piece of that thing that had to die becomes a part of the earth again. It is a resource. Its energy is valued, and I love that thing just like I love anything else. And it creates an ecosystem here. So there's wildlife. I mean, crazy amounts of amazing, beautiful wildlife that is all running for sanctuary on my property, because all around me is all kinds of death and destruction with farmland and, solar panel farms. And, I mean, just like, oh yeah, don't get me started on that crap. But there's so much like death and destruction going on around that we've created this safe, regenerative space. And regenerative is understanding that thing about the polarity of life and death. Life, if you understand regeneration, then you no longer fear death or loss of body. You fear the loss of having to hold the physical hand of somebody you love, or the dog that always did great things for you that got hit by a car. You have an actual feeling of, oh, I miss the grief, the memory, all of that stuff. But as it relates to the physical loss of life, you cherish it because it is a gift and it is gold, and it is, so these are the types of things that I want people to see first out of the gate. I want them to be welcomed to the farm. I try so hard to never let somebody roll up on the farm without immediately coming out and saying, welcome to Freedom Harvest Farms, because that is essential to, you are welcome into my safe space. And I want to share this with you.
Mi casa, su casa, Aislynn.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is exactly what I'm creating out here. As a matter of fact, I was mentioning earlier that some of my future thoughts are about being able to create enough life going on here at the farm on a regular basis, that things are taken care of, that my parents, if they need any extra help with something, all that stuff's taken care of, that I can actually leave and go out into the world and do some other types of things. But the part of that that's important related to what we're talking about is that I'm trying to create kind of almost a boarding house or a hostel type feel, where I've got people coming from all over the world to stay in hip camp, which is where you can camp on the property. And it's like Airbnb, but you do with your tent or your van that you live in, or whatever, something like that. People that come in that are woofers, that's worldwide opportunities on organic farms. And they come from Germany and California and Mexico. And I mean, like, I've had people come from all over the world, and they stay here and they work on the farm, and all of that stuff is just, and then I have these things I call supper at the farmhouse, where people come and they cook with me in the kitchen, and then we sit down together and we have this family style dinner, and we pass plates of food around and we talk about.
That was a great experience. I enjoyed that tremendously. Like, most people don't realize how open-hearted that you are, Aislynn. I remember when that visit I went on, it's like, we literally was in there. We had a great conversation. It was like a family vibe. We made shrimp tacos. We had some of your exclusive wine at the farm. And it just felt like I was at home, even though I wasn't actually at my home. You create like that family friendly, safe, peace, comfortable environment, ironically enough, talking about the importance of the environment and how important it is to protect it within that form of education and information that you continue to provide on a regular basis. And it's like, most people don't even notice, Aislynn. I'm going to just throw this out there for those who don't know how much work you were literally doing behind the scenes. Aislynn literally had NASA, the people from NASA themselves, contact her because they wanted to get a better understanding of what is going on. Like, let that sink in for everybody who is listening to this particular episode. I wanted to throw this in there particularly because that just goes to show you how great work that you're doing within itself. For you to have NASA come down and talk to you like, what's going on with the soil health? What's going on with the biodiversity? What's going on with our overall ecosystem and the water management and stuff like that?
How the weather, like, what are we going to do about the weather changes? What are we going to do about the climate changes? How are we going to continue to grow food while we do that? You know, so a lot of people, the food part of it for me, everyone always just immediately jumps to the idea that I'm a producer and I sell food. And I'm like, here, I need you to know all the farms in the area because I'm not going to be the one person that can feed you. But I need every single farm all over. I need any person in this region that owns a piece of land, any small, even if you own like the small, or even if you're a renter and you're the person that you rent from, it is willing to let you grow some things. You know, if every single person starts growing something that has any little bit of space where they can grow something, we actually change the world. And that has nothing to do with this massive scale of agriculture. Small scale is the only answer. And even the farmer's market is a huge challenge because when you go to the farmer's market, you still treat those people as if they're Walmart. Or you don't even you can't acknowledge the scale that they have to be able to do in order to actually make money and how much they have to charge in order for that to occur. And so my lesson is, yes, I've been gardening and doing regenerative and planting seeds and doing backyard gardens and wanting to teach people how to grow food and all of that kind of stuff for such a long time. But my goal is to teach people to do it on their own, and that we shift our mindset about annual production. Now, annual production, to make this clear for people, because a lot of people don't understand, annual production means I till up a row and I plant my tomatoes and I leave them in for 4 months. And if they don't produce, I kill them and I till them back under, and then I wait 6 months and I start over again. And it's just like, that has nothing to do with how life works. That's treating plants and vegetables and food as if it is a machine or a widget in a machine. And nature, if we allow nature to do what nature does, we can go, this is the bringing it all together, bringing the non-physical into the physical of a life experience that we're having here, grounding the visions down to the earth here by saying, I can watch how nature does her job, learn what she loves to do on my piece of land, and then bring annual production into that, where I'm still going to have loss of tomatoes. I'm still going to have a season of carrots. I'm still going to have annual production, grapes that have to be harvested. All that is annual production, but I don't have to do it by destroying everything to get through it. And the reason we did that was because man believed the more we kill, consume, and control, the better off we would be, until we got to this era in humanity. And now we're in this era of humanity where we're having a massive class divide, a massive divide of people that are like, we can't continue to do it because it's not working. And I'm not even saying we're killing the planet, we're killing humans. And then a group of people that won't even be able to hear what I have to say. They don't like, they would think I was the crazy. I literally got in a little spit spat last night with somebody, and I was like, I have to stop because this person doesn't even drive to Rockport because they just don't go anywhere. They don't have any experience with anything. And I'm arguing, and so my therapist taught me, she said, and this is huge. I think it's really important for marketing professionals and entrepreneurs and stuff like that to understand. There are going to be these people that go like this, like you, Clifton. Oh my God, I love what you're doing, and I want to be a part of it, and I want to. So those are that's your first level audience. That is the people that you give them everything you have to give them. They are your top priority, your top focus. You give them 108,000%. You give them everything, because those are the ones that already get you, and they're ready, and they're in it, and they're aligning with what you're talking about. And then in the second category, you have the people that are kind of locked up in their own weeds, right? So it might be a mom who wants to go there, but she's just like, I just had a kid. I've got 3 kids and I'm having a hard time and I can't. But what I'm doing with those folks is I'm just planting these little seeds to when it's time to awaken to this thing, or it's time to move their life in that direction, they either know who to go to, or they already have some of that information deep down in their soul. Actually, they always have that information deep down in their soul. It's just an awakening of it and aligning with it. And then you have the people that, as far as I'm concerned, and I know this is a word that everyone throws out, and I know it offends people, and honestly don't care about that anymore, but people that are like NPCs, they don't care. Their back is literally turned to me. I cannot change their mind. There is no point in me trying to change their mind.
This is so true.
And my therapist taught me that, because I was having grand anxieties about, she's like, well, who's your audience? I'm like, everybody needs to be healthy. Well, everybody does need to be healthy. But that doesn't mean everybody's ready for that. And this is actually, not only did I learn it there, but I also learned it in participating in Recovery Dharma, where you learn about recovering from, of course, different kinds of addictions. But if we look at the amount of addictions that humans have now, I mean, our computer screens, shopping, let's not even talk about alcohol, drug, whatever. Whatever we do, it's all kinds of addictions that we do, right? Yeah, so if you try to force somebody into recovery because they're doing bad things or whatever, they're not going to actually recover. They're just going to transition their addiction to some other addiction. They're just going to transition their addiction.
They're just going to prolong it more than anything.
So you're just battling. And that war, we always say the war on drugs, that creates more. In the manifestation conversation, in the we are all one conversation, and the polarity conversation, the more you battle, the more you combat, the more you try hard to, the less you can have it, because it already is. Wellness is, healing is, joy is, brilliance is, all that is I am. And so just let it come to you when it's time to come to you, instead of, and I think sometimes the offended part when I say the NPC part is that people go, yes, but there are people out there in the world that are suffering. And I'm like, you are never going to stop the people out there suffering until you stop your suffering. And your suffering often has to do with the fact that you don't love or forgive yourself